Okay, welcome everybody. So this will be the third video of my triple header, and you know what they say, you got to save the best for last. So this will actually be a good video. Now in this video, this is actually going to be more of a spiritual lesson. I want y'all to stay with me, a spiritual lesson. What we're going to talk about is the difference between humility and arrogance. That's what we're going to talk about today. And I actually had this actually came from a study. I know our congregation is studying for the last month, for the month of June. We had looked at different kings in the Bible, and so what we did was that we were studying like King Ahab, King Nebuchadnezzar, Jesus, all those other kings, and the point we were making were, in what areas were they showing humility, and what areas where they were showing arrogance, and what were those consequences that came from that. So that's what I want to cover today. I do have some notes written down. This is actually will be a lesson that I actually plan on either teaching or maybe doing a sermon one of these days on. So this would be a good lesson to do that. Arrogance. An arrogant person is described as someone with an exaggerated sense of their own importance of abilities. You and I know people that are like that. That got this exaggerated thing, they the greatest thing ever. Humble, on the other hand, are people that show a modest estimate of their importance. Now, I had looked on a website and I found something interesting. According to the greatergood.berkeley.edu, people who are humble handle stress better, and they have a higher levels of physical and mental well-being. Did y'all get what I just said there? So in other words, those people that are always stressed out, a lot of that happen to do with you having more of an arrogant disposition of yourself. That's what that little passage says. So what I got is, I got three things or three differences. We're talking about behavior now. The three differences in behavior between somebody that's arrogant and somebody that's humble. So I want y'all to get y'all pens and papers. I'm going to have fun with this. I'm going to have fun with this lesson. So get your pen and papers ready. I got three of them. Number one, an arrogant person will blame others and pout when things don't go their way. But a humble person will accept the outcome and move forward in life. I want y'all to think about that. I got two scriptural passages. If you look at 1 Kings chapter 21, 1 through 4, for my church folks out there, if you know this story, King Ahab asked Naboth if he can have his vineyard, if he can sell his vineyard to him. Naboth said, no, I'm not going to do that because this vineyard was an inheritance. King Ahab became angry and he sulked because Naboth refused to sell him his vineyard. So do y'all see what's going on there? Now, if you contrast that to Luke 22 and 39 through 44, when Jesus knew that he was going to the cross, but he prays to God to persevere. If it's not my will, it's by your will, Father, that this may happen. And the angel came to strengthen him because he was in extreme sorrow. Do y'all see the difference in between those two scriptures there? How you have one person who was not happy with the outcome and they got angry and started pouting, while the other accepted what the outcome was going to be and continued to move forward. That's the difference between being arrogant and being humble. So I put it back on y'all. Are you the type of person that blame others for your issues, for your problems when things don't go your way? Or are you the type of person who would Focus on the things that you can control. That's number one. And number two, whatever the outcome is, you accept that outcome and you continue to move forward. That's a very important distinction right there between the two. Now, number two, this is a good one here. A humble person will admit when they're wrong, while an arrogant person will not acknowledge their failures or their weaknesses. Humble person will admit when they screw up and apologize for it. An arrogant person, nope, they're not gonna admit anything. Don't worry, I got some passages for you. Look at 2 Samuel chapter 12, starting at verse 7. Now, you had the prophet Nathan, who comes to King David and he informs him that he had sinned against God by killing off Uriah in battle and taking his wife to be his own. Y'all see what I'm saying? Now, instead of David getting mad, instead of David saying, you need to get out my business, instead of David saying, you know what, I'm the king, I can do whatever I want to do, David acknowledged his sin, and God took away that sin and spared his life. Now, let's contrast that. Go to Daniel chapter 4. Go to Daniel chapter 4, verses 27 through 30. Now, y'all remember Daniel, he has that gift on how to interpret dreams, right? He tells King Nebuchadnezzar that the reason why he had those dreams, those frightening dreams, he need to repent from his actions. But King Nebuchadnezzar failed to do that. Because if you see in those following verses, 12 months later, a year later, he was sitting there bragging like, oh, look at all this wonderful kingdom that I just built. And then at that exact moment, that's when God had took him off of the throne. So compare and contrast those two. King David, when he was brought to the carpet, he acknowledged what he did and repented for him. And you got Nebuchadnezzar, who was brought down to the carpet, but he didn't acknowledge a thing. My question to you, how do you respond when somebody's checking you? How do you respond? Do you get angry, upset? Do you tell them to stay out of your business? Or do you say, you know what? I see where you're coming from. I apologize for that. I'm a improve in that area. One thing that I've realized is that church folks, I'm going to get y'all with this. Church folks can be some of the most high-minded, arrogant people that you will ever meet. Yes, I said it. They can be some of the most high-minded, arrogant people that you just meet. Think about it. You got some church folks out there that never admit when they do wrong. They don't like to be corrected. If another brother and sister bring them down to the carpet and say, hey, you need to stop doing this, or this was wrong what you did, you need to apologize, they get mad. That may be the thing where they just poof and just take off and leave the church altogether. All because of somebody corrected you. All because you didn't see eye to eye with that person. You got church folk that act like they've been perfect their whole lives. It's funny too because I remember shout out to Carlos Jackson. He had put up a post recently when he talked about there's a difference between growing up in church and growing in Christ. And what you will see is that a lot of church folks, especially those who say, oh, I grew up in the church, they act like they've been perfect their whole lives. They act like they never said a cuss word. They act like they never lusted after another man or woman. They act like they've always been mature. And they act like they've never been selfish. They have no struggles whatsoever. They just know they going to heaven. Do y'all see what I'm saying? That's being arrogant. That's what that is. Woo, I got one more for y'all. I know that was a lot to digest right there. I got one more for you. An arrogant person refuses to listen to sound advice, while a humble person is willing to listen no matter who it is that's telling them what that advice is. Yes, I got some examples for you. If you go to 1 Kings chapter 12, start at verse 6. Do y'all remember King Rehoboam? Yeah, he was one of, I believe, King Solomon's sons. One of King Solomon's sons. Y'all remember when he consulted the elders on how to answer the assembly of Israel? And what they told him was, go to the people, and if you be a servant to the people, they're going to be willing to be a servant to you forever. But he didn't take that advice. He went to his buddies, to the buddies that he grew up with. I want y'all to hear me on this. To the people that he grew up with, and listen to their advice. And what they told him was that, no, you tell them that, hey, I'm a rule with the iron fist just like my father did. You thought he was rough, I'm going to be 10 times rougher. I'm going to increase your burden. He mentioned something about being whipped with the scorpion whip. I'm going to increase your burden. And based on the decision he just made, that led to the rebellion of the house of David. Now, contrast that to 1 Kings chapter 2. When you have King David gives Solomon, since David was getting ready to pass away and give him his kingdom, he gives Solomon great advice as far as to walking in obedience to God, keeping his decrees, and God will prosper you in everything that you do. And we see what the result of that was. King Solomon reigned for 40 years, and he had a lot of success. He lost his mind towards the end, though. If y'all can remember, he lost his mind, but he had a lot of success because he followed wise counsel. Notice the difference between those two outcomes there. You see how we can sabotage ourselves by listening to other weak-minded people, listen to other foolish people, people that's not even qualified to give us sound advice from the get-go. Why in the world would King Rehoboam, instead of listening to those elders who served with his father, who know the ins and outs of what it takes to run a kingdom, why would he not listen to them and listen to his ragtag buddies who don't know anything about kingdom business? I find that odd, man. We would rather listen to somebody that's going to tell us what we want to hear, rather than somebody that's going to tell us what we need to hear. So boom, there it is right there. I just gave y'all 3 differences between an arrogant person and a humble person. Now, we got to be honest with ourselves. We got to be honest. There are times when we are a little arrogant. We are a little too full of ourselves. So it's one of those things where once you know better, you'll do better. And you're going to have better results at the end of the day. So that's my lesson for y'all. I hope y'all enjoyed that. I hope y'all took down some notes. Y'all enjoy the rest of your 4th of July weekend. Peace.